County Continuum of Care membership body, which meets regularly on a monthly basis and is comprised of nonprofit, faith-based, county, city, and other private organizations who come together to coordinate responses that address homelessness countywide. So we welcome all of our members as well as any board members from the Riverside County Continuum of Care who are key in that process. And in addition, want to welcome our city partners and any representatives from the 5 supervisorial district offices in Riverside County who have joined us. It's 3:01, and so we are going to go ahead and jump right in to the content that we have for you. So once again, welcome Riverside County COC members, board members, in addition to city stakeholders, and of course, representatives from all 5 of our supervisorial district offices. We want to thank you for recognizing the importance of this convening. And if we move on to the next slide, we wanted to make sure to overemphasize how much we appreciate you. We know that many of you are joining us for either the second, third time, fourth time. You've been a part of this planning effort many times before, and it's good to reconnect with you. Again, we consider you friends, a part of our family for sure, because we regularly meet with you to coordinate homeless engagements or as part of the annual homeless point in time count. For others, this may be your first time, and you may have been told from someone in your city or your agency, if you're a nonprofit or faith-based or private partner, that, hey, the county is doing this thing and we need you to be our representative. And so we welcome you and we look forward to getting to know you throughout this process. My name is Tanya Torno. I'm the Deputy Director that oversees the Riverside County Homeless Continuum of Care within our County Department of Housing and Workforce Solutions. And on the call, I have an incredible team of colleagues and other HWS staff members who are here also representing Greg Rodriguez, Emma Perez Singh. I know our director, Heidi Marshall, Mike Walsh, as well as Rashana. Other key leadership executives from our team are here, and also welcome you and thank you for your participation. So we appreciate you, and in the upcoming slides, you'll see why, because this is a really important event that happens on an annual basis where we are required by HUD to do an inventory of who is experiencing sheltered homelessness throughout the nation and in our county. And then every other year, we embark in an effort to also include the unsheltered population in that census. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that process, but at least for now, I wanted to share with you that the point in time count is a mandated event that is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and is required of COCs and counties. And through that effort, we work very closely with all 28 cities, many of you who are represented on the call, to make that happen. The count is very much intended to provide a snapshot of who is experiencing homelessness. And so if you think of a snapshot, right, a picture that's taken, it really is meant to sort of identify in that moment in time how many people are experiencing homelessness, and also inform us about who they are, so that we have as providers and as community members and stakeholders have the ability to use that information to really inform our federal, state, and local partners about the need in Riverside County. It is not meant to capture a full census of who is experiencing homelessness. And for that reason, you'll often hear our team refer to a homeless management information system, or HMIS, which is a centralized database that we use, and anybody who does homeless work is encouraged to use to track people who they engage for homeless assistance. And oftentimes when we compare the number of people that are served in 1 year through that system, the numbers well exceed our annual homeless point in time count. And as a comparison, in 2023, when we last did a full census of those that were unsheltered and sheltered, we identified over 3,700 individuals, where in 1 year, when we looked at HMIS data and people that were engaged by street outreach teams and enrolled in an emergency shelter or who received housing assistance, there were a total of 17,000 unduplicated engagements. So again, just really pointing to or providing a picture that the PIC count is, again, very much intended to be a snapshot in time. And it is meaningful. It does serve a purpose because it allows us to do a comparison to previous years. And so you can look at trends on whether homelessness has gone up, whether it has gone down, and we'll talk a little bit more about how our federal, state partners use that to allocate funding in Riverside County in future slides. So with that, we wanted to announce the date of the point in time count. Many of you may have already seen the flyer announcing that Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 is the date that Riverside County will be working closely with all 28 cities and our county partners to make sure that all areas, including unincorporated areas of the county, are part of this effort. And the reason that the count is conducted the last 10 days in January is really to, as part of a mandate to ensure that nationwide there's an apples to apples comparison from one community to another. And so that the idea is if everyone can really use the same methodology and approach, then it's fair game. You can really look at comparing neighboring communities, but also, right, on a larger scale, east and west states as an example to each other. So mark your calendars. Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 is the date of our new count. Hopefully we have already marked your calendars for you. If we haven't, you know how we do. You'll be getting an invite shortly from us to make it official. And so who is counted during the annual point in time count? I shared how HUD requires an annual count for those that are in shelter on an annual basis. And so for that data, we are using the HMIS system that I spoke to earlier to look at who is occupying all of our different shelters. And these are temporary settings where individuals receive temporary shelter, bed, food, shower, and other case management services to resolve their homeless temporarily while they're working on a long-term exit to housing. And so we have a great network of providers: Path of Life, Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, Valley Restart. Gosh, if I don't name them all, I am a bad person, but there are so many incredible organizations I did not name, and that's the way I'm going to save myself, who all enter their data in HMIS. And we are going to use or pull a report in HMIS to show who was sleeping in the shelter on Wednesday, January 22nd, 25, to capture our sheltered count. For our unsheltered count, and this is the one that most people are involved with, we are actually going to be recruiting volunteers from city, county departments, in addition to our nonprofit and faith-based organizations and community volunteers. Every year, we include an effort to involve the community, and we will have volunteers participate in a 1-hour training where they will receive access to a mobile application where they will be able to access a survey that they will use to actually interview people who they engage that are sleeping on the streets. So when we speak about unsheltered homelessness, we are specifically targeting individuals who are sleeping in a place not meant for human habitation. So again, that's on the street, someone who's living in an encampment, maybe they're sleeping in their vehicle. Oftentimes with city and county public safety teams will visit encampments where there are abandoned trailers or other type of substandard housing or shelter that people are using, but does not have full access to water and gas hookups. So we make sure to include all of those individuals as part of our unsheltered count. And I think the one piece that I missed, quick reference before moving on, is I spoke to pulling information from HMIS for our sheltered count. You should also know that we have a list of shelter providers that may not enter their data into HMIS, but every year share their information with us so that we can get a full or better depth of who is in temporary housing today. So that's also included and a part of that effort. All right, so if we advance to the next slide, here is why why the count is so important. I shared earlier that HUD mandates the count. So again, this is something that is done nationwide across all of the different communities. And on a federal level, HUD, both HUD and the state of California use our count to determine resource distribution. So there are different grants that we can apply for competitively, and also some that are part of a standard allocation that we receive, and all utilize the point-in-time count to really speak to the level of investment that is needed for each community. So on the federal side, one point that always stands out is HUD will give communities additional points if they have reductions to homelessness, and then on the state side, HUD or the state will look at resource distribution based on the actual need, the number of people that are experiencing homelessness. And then also, and probably as equally important, is that the data is critical because it really allows us to use those investments locally in an equitable way so that we are deploying resources where they are needed most, because we recognize that in Riverside County, we are a large geographical base, and each community looks so different, and the data really helps us customize certain interventions and drive resources in that way. I do see that we have a hand raised, so I'm going to pause here, and Jeffrey, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Jeffrey, I still see your hand is raised, but I'm not seeing you unmute. And team, I don't know if we can do that for him, if there's a way to unmute him.
Hey, Jeffrey, I believe you're on mute right now.
Jeffrey, we can see that you're attempting to talk, but we can't hear you. Do you want to?
There we go. There we
go. Okay.
So my question is, and somebody else asked this in the chat. So like, we have a running count of our homeless weekly, and we have enough city staff to do our homeless count. Is that going to be acceptable?
And so, Jeffrey, one, kudos for being a city that has a by name list of individuals who are experiencing homelessness in your community. Great part of the effort, and that data is critical. I know a lot of other cities like Palm Springs, Murrieta, et cetera, are doing that. So I just want to make sure I'm not mixing up your question. So your question is it that you have staff within the city that will allow you to fully conduct the count on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 on your own? Is that the question?
Yeah, that's my question. Yes.
So the answer is because the point in time count, the sort of the mandate or the responsibility of the event is the county, then it's okay not to, if you don't need additional community volunteers, it's okay to not take them. However, on the county side, we very much would be working with each city to include county staff and any of our contracted homeless service providers, such as our street outreach teams, to be present with the city to conduct the count. So that would be the only sort of requirement. For all the cities on here, know that we will be reaching out to you guys individually to talk about those logistics. But it's definitely okay to say, hey, you know, we have enough staff in working with city and county personnel to conduct the count. We don't need additional community volunteers.
Right. We just, my concern is, our concern is that we get a proper pit count with, you know, the right number of people. And we know where all of our homeless people are at. We know where the encampment's at. And there's a lot of encampments hidden within our community in Smith Creek. And literally on a weekly basis, I have on my phone every single person that is in this community, except for, of course, the transients. And they're not here. They're just here for the Department of Social Services stuff. And then they leave. So that's my concern. I just want us to have a proper pit count and make sure that we get the right numbers in there.
Thank you. And yes, cities, you know your regions very well, which is why we partner with you guys on this and why we appreciate that partnership. So know that we will be meeting with you guys individually to work through those logistics and identify the hotspots that as an example, Jeffrey, you know very well for the city of Banning. There is another related question in the chat box of what if a city has a dedicated homeless service provider that will be working with us during the pit to provide services? Do we still need to take county staff? And the answer is yes. Again, the mandate is to the county because we serve as the administrative lead for the point in time count to facilitate the count. So we will work out the level of involvement, because I think what I'm getting from the cities is we have enough people, but just recognize that, yes, we do need to have county personnel assisting and, you know, on the ground the day of the count in each region of the county.
Okay, thank you, Tanya.
Of course. So moving on to the next slide, how do we conduct an unsheltered count? Again, I talked about a mobile application that is used, and we want to give a shout out to our partners from Esri, as well as our county IT team, in addition to the data and research team within HWS, who is also here represented, Gordon, Annabelle, and Salam, and Natalis, who work very closely with both entities to get that mobile application in place year after year. You better believe it that in other communities, they are still using paper surveys to conduct the count. We've been doing this for a number of years now, and it has worked out relatively well, because not only do we, reduce any time counting surveys manually, but we're able to get the results a lot quicker, and then also it supports us being able to deduplicate clients, which I know is another key piece. To all of our cities here and all of our partners, you should know that we want to get a true count, to what Jeffrey said. We don't want to duplicate efforts, and so to that end, using a mobile application has been great to look for people who have similar initials, date of birth, as an example, to sort through surveys. The survey itself takes about 5 to 10 minutes to complete, and that 1 hour training that I spoke to earlier will ensure city, county, and different volunteers all know how to use the application and are set up to do so on the day of the actual count. And it's user-friendly. Share that. It's user-friendly every year. We're trying to make it better and better. And so certainly, because we like talking about ourselves, but also recognizing what a big lift this is. Our county is large, and the partnership with the cities is key. And also shout out to our Riverside County Sheriff's team and our Behavioral Health Hope team, who are really the key leaders in helping us count the unincorporated areas of the county, for all the reasons that have already been stated, because you guys frequent, your areas, your turf, where the hotspots are, and we wouldn't be able to do this without you. Also, advances in technology, such as the use of drones. Shout out to our Riverside County Parks team and other city teams who utilize these to sort of pre-identify hotspots prior to the count, so that when we are gathered together the morning of before people actually go out to count, we already have pre-identified spots where we know we need to send people to. So again, we're just moving to a more efficient system. And so next, this is, I mentioned earlier, one of 4 community meetings that we're having. The next time that we will be getting together with you will be on November 14th, and then we'll have a follow-up meeting December 4th, and then a final meeting January 9th before the actual point in time count. All meetings will be from 3 to 4 p.m. And we also wanted to announce that there will be several subcommittee working groups that you'll be invited to participate in. So if you are really interested in helping with, for example, developing the survey and the questions that are asked, we invite you to join us for that. There is also a More Than a Count initiative that we've done really for the last 4 to 5 years in the county, which recognizes that counting people is obviously part of our mandated process, and there's good data that comes from that. But any opportunity that we have to engage with people who are in crisis or are experiencing homelessness is one that we want to take advantage of to help serve people. And so part of the 1 hour training that you will participate in will speak on this initiative and a process so that any veterans or youth who are identified on the day of the count can be transported to a access site where they will be screened and by a social worker and invited to take a bed at one of our shelters, transitional housing units, or hopefully some permanent housing units that we have set aside for them. So again, this is really as a result of investments that our department and the Riverside County Continuum of Care have been able to secure that allow for these two populations, veterans and youth, to be fast-tracked to housing and services on the day of the count. You're probably asking, like, why only these two populations? Why can't we do everybody? Our heart is with yours. We wish we could do this initiative for everybody, but the resources are simply not always there. But as a result of recent federal and state investments, we are able to do that for both populations. And so if you are a veteran or youth provider, know that we will be reaching out to you in the upcoming weeks to coordinate that. All right, so this is a reflection of an infographic that we put together the last time that we did a full count, unsheltered and sheltered count in Riverside County. And you will see a similar report revamped in April of 2025, or April through May of 2025 next year, once we have finished the count and have done our deduplication and analyzed all of the data. So this report here, it just shares with our entire community and partners what is possible, what is the information that is gathered. And so this was part of a 4-pager infographic that we did that just provided a high-level summary. But if you wanted to see a full in-depth report of the PIC count, broken down by city and unincorporated area or by supervisorial district, those reports are available on our website. And so for our cities that are on the line, again, we're going to be coordinating separate meetings with you guys, but definitely wanted to take advantage of this avenue here to just share what our partnership would look like, and as it has looked like in previous years, but always in an effort to revamp that. You are likely here because you've been identified as a site leader or site coordinator for your city. And so your role would be, of course, working with whether it's a community volunteer or, as we heard earlier, county volunteers and city volunteers to conduct a count in your city. We would be working with you guys to have sign-in sheets of everyone that participated in the count, and also identifying deployment sites in each of your cities. Most cities will have 1 to 2 deployment sites based on their size, and each site will have a specific area of the region that they cover that is broken up into smaller subgroups that volunteers actually go and count. Normally, most teams deploy at 6 a.m. and are instructed to count until they finish surveying that entire region that they are responsible for. We, on the county side, will provide you with hygiene kits and flyers on resources that are available that will be provided to every individual that participates in the count as part of an incentive. And thank you. And of course, we don't want to walk away leaving people with nothing. So we'll, in our individual meetings with you, review these roles at more depth, but at least for now, wanted to give some of you who are joining us for the first time some better picture of what your assignments would be. I think the part that Jeffrey spoke to from the city of Banning was also critical, is really helping us identify the hot spots so we can make sure that those areas are covered. And also, I think where public safety, your public safety teams are critical, are really guiding us on the day of the count on which areas are safe to access, and like when it makes sense maybe to have public safety count certain areas as a result of risk versus having other staff and site navigate, more safer areas. So the next, you're probably wondering, what's our role? I'll just kind of speak to that at a higher level. Again, we will be meeting with you guys sort of individually to conduct the count, but also we will be helping you guys check in during your morning huddle before people go out to do the count. And we will be your primary point of contact regarding all pit things related from here on out, in addition to making sure those hygiene kits get to you and providing information on the process for the More Than a Count initiative. And so with that, I am going to hand it off to my partner, Emma Perez-Singh. She is a manager with the Continuum of Care Division and will walk us through the remaining slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. So as Tanya mentioned, our point in time count is going to be held on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We hold the count on the last Wednesday of every January on the years that we conduct the count to adhere to a similar methodology for previous counts. As noted on the slide, we expect volunteers and our site coordinators, our city leads, to arrive at deployment sites at about 5:30. Some elect to arrive earlier. We have a check-in, we do a briefing, and we get everyone ready to go and out of the door to start counting by 6 a.m. And typically most teams are done around 9:30, but as a caveat, counting teams must count until the entire city has been covered. So that means that if you still have places to count and it's 9:30, you will continue to count. In addition to the street-based count, we do cover the unincorporated areas, which are non-city areas, and that is done 7 days post-count. Anytime within that time frame, we typically will work with our Riverside Sheriff's HOT teams, in addition to our county contracted outreach teams and county staff members to make sure that those areas are also counted. We also conduct a service-based count, which will be beginning on Wednesday, January 22nd through Friday, January 24th. And that is normally during business hours for the agency that is participating in the service-based count. We also have a post-count period of 7 days post-count if needed. Very rare, but that is allowable through HUD. So if there is a particular area that wasn't counted, then we are able to go back and do a count as needed. Next slide, please. We have made getting the survey very easy, and I am just going to really high level breeze through the next couple slides because we will have a specific training during our volunteer training. All of our volunteers are going to be provided with the information to download the slide, but just for everyone's edification, the mobile app is available on the Google Play or App Store. And we have individuals download the Survey 123 application, and you will have an opportunity to do some test surveys before the actual day of the count, so that if you would like to become well-versed in the questions, or you have concerns or questions that you would like to bring to the team, you have an opportunity to do that before the count. And next slide, please. And so if you go onto the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, you will not find the 2025 Riverside County Survey just yet. It will be there, and it will be there by the time we have our volunteer training. So please don't go looking for it and emailing us and saying, I can't find it, because you will not be able to find it right now. So we will let you know as soon as it is available, and we will have it available hopefully before the volunteer training, but by the volunteer training for sure. Next slide, please. All right, part of what we do at the county is volunteer recruitment, training, and management. And this is a county-wide effort to recruit volunteers. We did hear from some cities indicating that they may not have a need for community volunteers. However, we still have a need. As I mentioned before, we have a service-based count. We're going to be having a More Than a Count initiative for veterans and youth. And so there will be a need for volunteers in other areas, in addition to some cities also needing volunteers to help support the count effort. And so we will handle that. We will be launching our volunteer recruitment very soon. And we will have a training and make sure that we assign volunteers to deployment sites that they indicate they would like to be located at. We'll be working very closely with all of our deployment sites, our city leads, and our volunteers to make sure that everyone's trained, again, that they have assignments, that they know who their assigned county coordinator is, and will be managing lists, etc. So more to come on that as we get into additional orientations and training. As Tanya mentioned, we work with each city leader to develop the maps. These maps include areas of encampments, known encampments, or areas that the city knows there are homeless individuals that reside within certain geographic locations. We divide the cities into smaller, more manageable areas and have teams of between 3 to 4 that are assigned to each of the areas. So no one team will be canvassing an entire city. It's broken up into smaller pieces so that it's manageable and it's not so labor intensive for one particular team. And as the count approaches, we will be working with the cities to identify these areas and make sure that the maps are developed and disseminated to volunteers at the deployment sites. Next slide, please. All right, the day of the count. So as mentioned, county coordinators are assigned to every deployment site to work alongside city leaders and provide support on the morning of the count. The primary role of the coordinator is to ensure deployment sites conduct a concise and accurate count and to ensure volunteers follow procedures. Coordinators participate in individual city planning sessions to be informed about how leaders can plan to implement the point-in-time count in their city. We also assist with volunteer check-in and provide technical support related to the Survey 123 app. The majority of coordinators are paid county staff with previous homeless point-in-time count experience. The day of the count, the site coordinators will assist with finalizing the counting teams on the morning of the count, considering that there may be less volunteers on site than anticipated, and many cities may plan to use city staff and law enforcement, and that's completely fine. There should be, however, teams of 3 to 4 volunteers covering a specified geographical area. Suggested roles are a team leader with previous experience with the count, a driver with a large vehicle, someone who is designated as a counter, someone who is a lookout person and also is distributing incentives, and a law enforcement escort if needed. And every team lead should have the site coordinator's phone number. So very important information. And again, we will be going over this more in depth at our training. Next slide, please. Safety tips, working with law enforcement. If law enforcement is present, they should provide a short safety reminder to include check-in and check-out, sticking together, emergency phrases, and also going over our policy on picture and video taking. Typically, we prohibit any photographic, any photos or video of clients. If you'd like to take a photo, typically we have protocols in place for that, and we will ask you to adhere to certain rules. Again, we will go over most of this information in our training in depth, just providing an overview for the purpose of today. Next slide, please. As Tanya mentioned, we will be providing incentive bags. We will also be looking to get masks and hand sanitizers. So I am going to put an asterisk next to those 2 items. We had a inventory of these items, specifically in response to COVID. We haven't secured these items just yet, but we are working to secure these items. Also, we will be providing the Home Connect number. For those of you who do not know, Home Connect is our centralized intake for our homeless service system of care. We will also be providing site leader phone numbers and immediate assistance phone numbers for our veteran and youth initiative. And what to expect moving forward, please visit the More Than Account website for meeting recordings and additional information. Volunteer registration will be opening soon. There will be a required volunteer training in early January 2025, which will be virtual. And also, we ask that you help us promote the count in your city. It's very important that all of us do our part in promoting the count so that we can have a comprehensive count countywide. And specific for city leaders, communicate with us, or next slide, please, Thuli. Thank you. Oh, next slide. Thank you. Please communicate with us if city leadership changes. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate contact information for whomever you are going to assign to lead the count efforts. Also provide law enforcement and outreach team contact information. Please be thinking about where you want to have your deployment sites located, and if you already have those sites pre-identified, provide that information to us. In addition to that, we would like to know the number of volunteers needed. If you are going to be using staff, please also let us know the number of incentives needed, and also supporting our initiatives, both the youth and the veteran initiative. I wanted to note that for the incentives, we were not able to get the vendor to ship directly to the individual deployment sites. So we will need to coordinate pickup of those incentives. We will work directly with each of the deployment sites to coordinate the pickup, but I did want to provide advance notice of that. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. We have about 5 minutes for questions. Apologies, we do have a 4 o'clock meeting, and so we are not able to run over, but I will go ahead and open it up for questions that haven't been answered yet. Okay, let me look in the chat here. Is there, oh, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so you talked about the cameras and the pictures. So the city just mandated a policy for those of us that wear body cams. We don't have a choice but to have those body cams on now. So what do we do about that?
It's mostly for volunteers that will take pictures of people's faces and post it on social media. If you have a city who body cams excluded, has a PIO, et cetera, that's wanting to do some media work, that is really not what we're talking about specifically. Our concern is for, number one, we don't have consent, and number two, if there is someone with like a DV situation, et cetera, it may put them at risk.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We will be emailing out a copy of the PowerPoint to everyone. As mentioned, we will also be uploading recordings to our website. If you do have questions, something that comes up after this presentation, please feel free to email us. We are always available for you. Our email address is coc@rivco.org. You also have Tanya and my direct cell phone numbers there. Please don't go posting them all over the website, because we will get phone calls after hours. But we appreciate all of you, and we look forward to continuing to meet and to having a successful count. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. See you later.